Right, so we've got a Prontor SVS shutter. This style of shutter was used in a number of cameras, pack sets, amongst others. I thought the shutter had done quite well to stay free of ants, but it hasn't. This little screw, if I can get it out, holds that detent in, which gives us the click stops for our shutter speeds. If I cock the shutter, I should be able to remove the retard gear train, because it gives me access to this screw at this end of the retard gear train, and this one, I'll get a smaller screwdriver in there. These screws are all very tight, like that retainer ring. I suspect corrosion is the reason that they're tight. Unless someone was exceptionally heavy-handed when they serviced the camera previously, and there's no particular reason to suspect that, because the screws aren't mutilated or damaged, or ant rubbish falling out there. Okay, I've got to remove the spring from the self-timer, or the delay action. I've got to unhook it from this post. Unhook it from here. Lift it out. I'll zoom you in a bit. There's a single screw here that holds the self-timer to the mechanism plate. I'll lift that out. I should be able to lift out the self-timer. Here we have the detent spring that keeps the shutter blades in the closed position. Let's see if I can unhook that from its post without it springing across the room. Very good. Now, if I release the shutter, can I unhook the spring? Yes. Need to take the screw. That screw is badly damaged. Now that's on the top of that little arm that activates the flash contact. That screw is a little bit unhappy looking. This flash contact here can come off. There are two small springs on the mechanism plate there that I want to leave in place. I'll turn my attention to the back of the shutter. This is an earth contact for the flash, I think. Looks like it. I'll remove this little plate here, I think. Now looking in the back of the shutter, the diaphragm blades look exceptionally oily. There's every likelihood that if they're oily, then most likely the shutter blades are exactly the same, and that's why the shutter did not want to release. Take that contact off. There's another brass shim, in fact there's two brass shims underneath that. I'll take those off. Having a look at this post on the back here to see whether it has a screw in it. Sometimes with an arrangement like this is the cocking shaft for the shutter. Some of them the pin is just a tapered pin and it's driven in across. Some of them the pin is locked in place by a screw in from the end of that shaft. And it looks to me like that might be the case here. Yes, there's certainly a screw there. I'll back that up slightly. The pin is not coming loose, but I think that was the secret. I'll take that screw out. I'm getting ant gunk on my hands. I'll find a pair of pliers I've got and see if I can manipulate that pin out. Now I can't see the one I want. Let's see if we can... Is that shutter in the cocked position? No, it's not. See if I can pop that pin out. Yeah, it's moving. Good. So 3 screws hold the aperture setting ring to the back. I'll remove those. This is all very dirty too, quite apart from really being ant infested. I've got to lift that up over that lever, that's fine. This lever sets the X and M flash sinks and probably the self timer as well. Now I'm just seem to be hooked in there at the moment. Let's just pull that spring back. See if I can get that loose. That's loose. More ant gunk. I want to remove this spring. Its job is to hold the shutter. What does that one do? Oh, that holds the this ring in place when it's been set for the delay, the self timer or delay action. And as the shutter fires, it unsets that clip so that the next time you use the shutter, the self timer doesn't engage automatically. And so you need to engage the self timer or delay action for each time you want to use it, not just set it for a series of photos. Right, get rid of that ant gunk. the shutter can be split now. There are 4 screws that hold the mechanism plate into the shutter case. Oh, I don't want to move. 1, 2. All of these screws are hard to move. One of these screws is longer than the others, and it's because it serves as a post that the detent spring I mentioned earlier, the one that holds the shutter blades closed, that doesn't want to come out. That's the one, that's the extended pin. I put a bit of solvent on there. The head's a bit mutilated now. I think I may have to drill that out and replace it. I might give that a couple of hammer taps to encourage it. Yes, let's have a look. What size is my driver? Is it too big? I have an old screwdriver I use like an impact driver. It's very solid and it's long since lost its spinny top, but it's good for getting screws loose. I'll find my block of wood and my hammer. Well, a judicious tap with the appropriate tools, loosen that screw up. Lift out that screw. Now you should be able to separate the mechanism plate from the case at this stage. It really doesn't want to move. It's more or less glued in, I think, with the oils and so forth. Let me put a screw back in and I can push on. And I'll give that a little tap, see if I can break that mechanism plate free. Those screws are very, very tight. Alright, that moved. Try one on the opposite side of the case. It does move, but it's very reluctant. There it's going. So there's our mechanism plate and the shutter case split. And looking at the state of this, it's very dirty. A lot of ant remains in here. I expect it'll clean up, but it's by no means a typical shutter job. And I will get out another tray to work on, and I will work on the shutter case and the diaphragm first. Then I'll turn my attention to the mechanism plate here and its componentry, and then we'll bring the two together, and then I'll turn my attention to the retard gear train and the self timer, and hopefully get the thing closed up and working. Yuck. Right, I'm going to take this apart. There are two screws that hold this plate in, this retainer. They're quite short. They're not quite 180 degrees opposite each other. Right, there we have the case. This is the moving piece inside there. As this is turned backwards or forwards, it swings the blades inwards or outwards to change the diaphragm or aperture setting. Here's our diaphragm. It's not unusual to be able to lift out the blades like that in one piece because they're interleaved. Each blade is on top of the previous blade and underneath the next blade. This little retainer spring here has to do with our speed, flash sync speeds, and it's for latching things in place. So these parts will need to be cleaned carefully. Normally I would just wipe these down with naphtha, but they're a little bit nasty for that, so I'm going to use that other solvent. And normally what you're wanting to achieve when doing a job like this is to remove all traces of old oil or contaminants or grease or dust or dirt, so that you can get it, all the components nice and clean again, like new, so that when the shutter is reassembled everything moves smoothly. Now where's my naphtha? Of course I didn't bother to test to see if that solvent I've just splashed around will eat the plastic tray. There's every likelihood. The lens that's sitting in the mechanism plate at the moment, the centre element, that may or may not be removed for cleaning. sometimes it's difficult to get a lens element like that out of the mechanism plate. You can certainly clean them in situ and put the shutter back together around them. It usually doesn't cause you any problems. It just means you have to be more diligent about doing things like lubricating things with graphite powder. Any lubrication of that nature has to be done to components before they're assembled to the shutter, otherwise inevitably that powder would find its way to the back of the lens element where you wouldn't be able to get at it easily. I'm just looking at this case to see if I've been successful cleaning it. There's a bit of something stuck in the corner here, like dirt. It'll be ant dirt, of course. I want that out. Normally swabbing things with a cotton bud and solvent will shift all the loose stuff, but if you've got something that's sort of impacted into the corner, it won't. And that looks good. And I'll do these components one at a time, and then hopefully I'll be able to assemble the diaphragm back into the case, and hopefully it'll be fairly free running. Now this plate, the surface of this is quite dirty and marked. Now that's fairly unusual. And I can't really tell whether that's a result of general humidity. Now those marks are really not shifting with naphtha at all. And that bad surface will almost certainly mean that the blades don't swing as freely as they otherwise would. It's worth noting, I think, that against this plate, one side of it obviously holds the diaphragm blades in place, so this is against the surface of the blades, and the other side of this plate is against the shutter blades. Well, some of that stuff's coming off on the cotton bud, but by no means all of it. It's corrosion. So it's not going to come smooth just by wiping it with solvent. I'm just going to take a toothpick and just run it across the surface to feel what the surface feels like. And it is rough. I'm going to polish both faces of this with metal polish, which will take some of the blackening off it, but it'll also take off the high spots of that roughness. And I'll show you what I'll get as a result. I don't know how well that'll show on the camera. This plate has now been polished with Brasso. It's still quite stained, but there's no surface roughness anymore. So that's our second component. I said it was probably a mistake using that solvent on the plastic tray. Well, so it appears, because the tray has gone gooey at that spot. Oh well, lessons for young players, I suppose. I'll clean this component next. This is the ring that swings the blades in and out. again, this is chemically blackened brass, and again it looks a little bit corroded, so I'm going to clean that with polish just like I've done with the other one, and that can come back together. Then I'll turn my attention to the diaphragm blades, which just look to be very, very oily. So I'll clean this plate and I'll bring you back when I clean the diaphragm blades. Right, these diaphragm blades. These are very, very oily. Let's pick this apart. The blades are all identical, as you'd expect with diaphragm blades. There is no first or last diaphragm blade, they're all the same. Each blade is placed on top of the previous blade, and the other end has to fit underneath the following blade, which always makes for entertainment when you're trying to get the last few in place. As you can imagine, the first couple go very smoothly. Unlike the shutter blades, which are plain, the diaphragm blades have little rivets in them to form as pivots. That makes cleaning them a more delicate operation, because if you catch your cotton bud on one of those rivets, you could damage the blade, twist it out of shape. And if the blades are damaged like that, they don't lie flat. And if they don't lie flat, it's very difficult to get them assembled correctly back into the camera, back into the shutter. So it's worth being very careful with these blades. One feature that often causes blades to get distorted out of shape is when they're in this condition, when they're very oily. What the oil does is it will stick highly polished thin pieces of metal together, just like glue. And the result of that is that they do not want to move over each other. So when you are pulling on the aperture setting dial to encourage the blades to a different setting, and the blades do not want to move over each other because they're glued together, you end up distorting the blades, because all your forces are going on at one end of the blade and you're pushing or pulling on the other end of the blade. And what that tends to do is cause the blades to buckle up, which of course only makes them even more reluctant to slide over each other in future. It's not uncommon to see blades that are quite oily. These ones are just probably a bit oilier than I'm used to seeing. The oils typically migrate to the blades from elsewhere in the camera, and most typically the thing that gets the blame for that would be, there's a bloody ant, look at that. It would be the focus adjustment, either the helical focus adjustment if the whole lens and shutter assembly is being moved backwards and forwards to focus the lens, or in this case where it is front cell focus, it'll be the lubricant used for adjusting the focus where the front cell screws in and out. Right, so those blades are clean now. And I'll reassemble that diaphragm. I'll get rid of that piece of paper. We can dial back the exposure somewhat.